now I gotta ask the question, how did you become the voice of Stitch?
Narrative suddenly running in my head going, oh, you're about to throw your career away right now.
Ohana means family.
Well, what are we gonna do? And he said, we're gonna hide it. Now we had the problem of like, oh, do I do it or do we get a real actor?
Family means
There's one take, it was live.
no one gets left behind.
And I was like, no, that's a huge no. I will do Stitch from now on.
How did you find out about how you were gonna be the voice of Stitch in the live action film?
They screened it for me. I was really nervous.
Aloha, I'm Jace Diehl, and today I'm here with the voice of Experiment 626 from the original animated Lilo and Stitch, who now returns for the new live-action Lilo and Stitch and has voiced the character and everything else in between. It's the iconic voice of Stitch, Chris Sanders. Thank you for joining me, Chris.
Thank you, nice to be here.
I normally start these interviews by asking, how did you become the voice? But you're an interesting example because you not only voiced Stitch, you created Stitch, for those who don't know, and wrote and directed the original film. So to start off, how did you come up with the initial idea for the film?
I'm going to jump in and just make sure I clarify. Co-wrote and co-directed
with Dean
Fleischer,
yes.
who I had met on Mulan, actually. In the closing days of Mulan, Tom Schumacher, who was the head of feature animation, he asked me if perhaps there was anything that I'd be interested in possibly directing. I recalled this children's book that I had tried to create way back in like 1986, and it starred this little monster, this creature that didn't know where it had come from. We were having sushi, and he said, well, why don't you just pitch the idea? And I had not prepared.
Oh, it wasn't a formal...
Oh my God,
Okay.
there was a second narrative suddenly running in my head going, oh, you're about to throw your career away right now.
Oh,
and
wow.
just remember this setting because this is where you just screwed everything up. What a terrible, non-practiced pitch. To Tom's credit, I blundered my way through just more of a concept. I didn't have a beginning, middle, and end. And he said, I like the idea of it. Why don't you, develop it? So I went away to Palm Springs, got a room at a big fancy hotel, and really didn't leave my room. I just stayed in my room for 3 days, sketching and writing and fleshing out what would become a little book. And the funny thing is, this children's book I tried to do, in 1986, and I abandoned. In a way, I finally finished it. So when I came back, I presented this little 19-page book. If you look at those original illustrations and the original storyline, there were a few key things that shifted, which always happens during the story development process, but it stayed relatively intact. I was really proud of it.
I also heard that you're kind of making it in secret. Is that the vibe I got?
Not even kind of. Tom said, I love this movie, but all of its strengths lie in fragile places. It will never survive the studio system. And both Dean and I were like, well, what are we gonna do? And he said, we're gonna hide it. And he said, we're gonna keep this off the books as long as we can, and we're going to give Lilo and Stitch enough time that this thing gets strong enough that this fragile little idea can hold up on its own. Imagine you're Tom Schumacher now, you've made that kind of a commitment now. Being in Florida really, really, really helped. It was never supposed to be a real studio.
Because it was a part of MGM Studios at the time?
Guests on the backstage tour gain admission to the heart and soul of Disney.
Max Howard, I believe, is the guy who was in charge of it, and he was the one that was like, I don't want this just to be an exhibit with people pretending to do animation. I want this to be a place that really makes animated film.
Here in this area, visitors to the park can watch the animation artists at work.
They had gathered some amazing artists, but they were young and they were really, really enthusiastic. So we went to Florida with it and kept it off the books. And for a couple of years, really and truly, like Tom Schumacher, when he was on the main lot in these meetings with people like Michael Eisner.
Hello, I'm Michael Eisner, chairman of the Walt Disney Company.
Apparently, and he told me this at one time, he said, eventually the meeting would come to this thing called Lilo and Stitch, which is on the paperwork,
Sure.
And they'd say so what's this whole Lilo and Stitch thing? And Tom apparently would be like, oh yeah, it's something we're working on, not ready yet, we'll let you know, right?
Okay.
And he kept that up until it was done, that thing.
Multiple times.
For years, it was in the air and it landed fully, the wheels were there, the wings were there, it was painted, the seats were in it. And that's the first time anybody ever saw it.
What was that first screening like then?
It was in Vegas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
wow.
It was in Las Vegas. We went to the screening and Michael was there. Michael Eisner was there. And he said, this is the strangest film. I can't really put my finger on, what it really is, but I like it. I really like it. And he said, it doesn't really fall into a category, but I like it, So that hard to categorize thing would have been the thing that could have sunk it.
Yeah.
The whole idea is it's very delicate.
For context, how long from that first pitch with Tom to you being complete with the film? How long was that?
That's a good question. It did fall into that ideal place of like 3.5 years or so.
I don't think most people watching those movies would understand it takes 3 years to make something like that. It's amazing.
Yeah, I'd say it's a little closer to 4. They're tedious because you can make a change at the last minute, which we did have to do because of 9/11.
Oh, that's right.
There was that really famous change that we had to embrace because, you know, we woke up on September 11th, the world changed, and they cleared the studio, they evacuated the parks. They cleared our studio, we all went home, and I was driving around that afternoon, you know, in a daze like everybody else was, and all of a sudden I remembered we had a whole sequence with a 747 that Stitch hijacked and just drove right down the main street of Honolulu and even bounced it off a building. And honestly, it was the biggest laugh in the whole film.
Wow, okay.
It was a funny sequence, and it was suddenly not funny. And I called Roy Disney, I called Tom Schumacher from the car, and I said, we got a problem. And it was Dean Deblois. He said, you know, I wonder if Jumba and Pleakley have a spaceship stored on the island somewhere. He said they didn't walk there. And in fact, that's the line he wrote.
What? Did you think we walked here?
And then the next thing we had to do was change the shape of that asset because it was one of the few assets that was CG.
Okay.
So,
so it kind of worked within that.
We had to hurry because a CG thing can take a little bit of time to shift. Now, thankfully, there wasn't very much rigging on it, and they pounded the 747 into the shape of a spaceship. But if you notice, the spaceship has some suspiciously 747-looking engines on it.
Okay.
Like, just leave the engines. Leave the engines. Just do the rest of it.
Red.
I mean, it was an emergency. Like, we were like, they were staying up all night to get this thing shifted and to get all those changes in. And we had just enough time to get it done.
I know you can.
Now I gotta ask the question.
Okay.
How did you become the voice of Stitch?
It was a practical decision. So whenever I pitched Stitch, I would just do a voice. And it was a voice I used at the studio to bother people. I would call people on the phone and go,
Hey, do you want to get some lunch? I'm hungry. What are you doing? Are you busy? Let's go run around and get some candy.
And so I would call people on the phone, and I would just use that voice. The idea being, we never wanted Stitch to speak. We wanted it just to be baby nonsense. If he made any sort of, you know, speaking bit, it would just be. Eventually we realized he would have to have a few things in English.
Okay,
Just a couple. Now we had the problem of like, oh, do I do it or do we get a real actor? And there was definitely, you know, conversation about like, well, who would do the voice? And both Dean and I had a grave concern that if we had a real actor come in and they were only doing, say, 7 lines, that the studio would feel like, well, you're not really getting all you could. Can you pad the part? And it would throw the film out of balance. Nobody wants to hear more of me, so we left me in long enough that we could see if. And honestly, when we got the comment cards back, the highest rated thing, surfing. I've never seen comment cards. You could get a stack that thick and you could roll the cards and the word surfing was written on every single one. Least favorite thing was frequently Stitch's voice.
Oh no, what? I feel like that's the most iconic thing from the movie now.
Well, yeah.
Wow.
So we're like, yeah, it's good enough, we'll leave it.
That's awesome that you kept
out.
it through. There's a lot of things like that.
As head of story, as a director, as a writer, there are certain things you just sort of go, okay, you get a note and you sort of just leave it.
Oh, sure, yeah,
see if it comes up again.
Yeah.
And we did get notes like, maybe you should fix Stitch's voice. And like, yeah, okay. And then we just sort of leave it. Next time it would still be there, you know. Just sort of leave it and see if it just would stick eventually. And that's what happened.
So what was that difficult acting part? And how did you go about it?
Yeah, so it became a thing that Stitch would have to say this one particular thing at the end.
This is my family.
And that was the closest to acting that I was going to have to come.
I found it all on my own.
I told Dean Deblois, I said, you know what? Today, I'm going to go in there as an actor and you direct me. I will do whatever you tell me. And I was nervous about it.
It's little and broken, but still good.
If that line doesn't work, we'll come back and we'll hire somebody. We'll hire a real actor. And Dean did his thing. He helped shape the performance. In really no time at all, he said, I think we've got it. And I said, are you sure? And he said, yeah, I think we've got it, no problem.
Yeah, still good.
So how long were your recording sessions for Stitch?
Not very long, you know, he doesn't say that much.
Sure, yeah.
You know, and I would do it very sporadically. Like I would go in and do my gobbledygook notes.
Yeah.
And I was always available, so you didn't have to schedule. Like, Chris, go to the booth, make a noise.
monkey like?
Make a noise. Yeah.
Go in the booth, make a noise. Okay, we're done.
And how about working with the other actors? So you directed them and you were the voice of Stitch in certain scenes. So did you ever work off them?
There's one particular time, David Ogden Stiers and I were working on the scene where Stitch and Jumba are inside the house and they're throwing this overloading weapon as it builds up like a balloon. It's obviously going to blow the house to smithereens, and they're both standing right next to it. And so it was a really tight timing, and finally David Ogden Stiers said, well, just come in the booth.
Yeah.
And, oh my God, it was so fun. I will never forget any second of that. It was live, you know, and like the timing, there's one take, we did it over and over again, but we finally got the one take that we liked, and like, oh my God, that was fun.
I just remembered, it's your birthday. Happy birthday.
Merry Christmas.
It's not Christmas.
Happy Hanukkah.
It's not Hanukkah.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yeah, that's great.
And then after the film came out, was it, because like I said, you've been Stitch in everything.
Yes.
Theme parks, what kind of things have you been in? Theme parks, video games, like?
So I'm very easygoing.
Okay.
Like studios are like, Chris, you want to do this? I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. This is the only time I was completely defiant. A couple of weeks after the film was out, we'd done all the promotion. We were in Los Angeles, and they called Dean and I into a room, and they said, we're going to play something for you. And it was, they pushed play on some, device, and I heard someone doing Stitch.
Oh.
And I didn't like it at all. I was like, well, who's that?
Yeah.
And I said, well, what am I listening to this for? And they said, well, somebody's going to have to do Stitch from now on. And I was like, no, that's a huge no. I will do Stitch from now on. I was extremely clear about it. And I said, I just don't think there's going to be that much that it will keep me from doing other jobs.
Well,
if it ever does become that much,
yeah.
then I will hand it to somebody else. And sure enough, I go into a studio about 10 times a year.
Oh, okay,
And I'll do toys, parades, stage shows, ice shows, announcements on the trains and the trams and stuff like that.
So fun.
Yeah, it's really fun.
So when this live action film that's now in theaters, when that was announced, was it a guarantee that you would be Stitch in that as well? Or how did you find out about how you were going to be the voice of Stitch in the live action film?
Well, I have to thank Dean Fleischer Camp because I knew this thing was happening. As per the thing I just said, I felt really uncomfortable, like crawling in there and going, well, I want to do this.
Sure.
I didn't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
And so I just waited.
Waiting.
For what?
And then one day, an email came in from this guy named Dean Fleischer Camp, the subject line, Stitch voice. I click on it and it said something along the lines of, would you be interested in reprising your role as the voice of Stitch? I immediately wrote back and said, yes, I would love to do that. And he wrote back, I think the same night, and said, would you be up for just a really brief phone call? I said, yeah, absolutely. So he said, just 10 minutes, we'll just talk for 10 minutes. And he called me on the phone and we talked for like ever.
Oh, wow.
Oh, it was the best conversation. We talked and talked and talked for hours, and I finally cut the call short because my phone was actually about to die. And that's how the whole thing happened. I have to say, I 100% credit him for reaching out to me and asking me to do it.
Did he show you any of the art at any point? Like, when did you see what the Stitch design was going to look like in real life?
The thing that made me super nervous was they did show it to me at one point, and I really, really wanted to see it. But having it on my computer terrified me because I'm like, this is the first thing that's on my computer. I could probably get into huge trouble.
Oh, sure.
If for some reason I actually, if they hit my head in the bathtub and lost consciousness for a minute and then emailed it to
New York Times or something.
Yeah. Like, check this out, everybody. I could have been. So having that on my computer made me nervous for another year.
I mean, the world was curious what he was going to look like. It's such a unique style of yours,
But they stuck with the shapes and stuff like that. One thing I noticed was that they did build a bit of a pupil into his eye.
I can't even pet it. It keeps staring at me like it's going to eat me.
That was the one thing I talked about. One of the things that gives him the vibe that he has is those expressionless eyes, those blank eyes, which are they're very alien. And so they never lit the live action Stitch in a way that you could see that pupil assembly in there. I'm pretty sure it's still in there, but you would never know it. But that's and they even showed me, they said you can only see it if you move the light in a particular way. You can barely see it in there.
So recording Stitch for the live action film, it's a remake of your original.
Yeah.
So what was it like revisiting those lines again and going through the movie?
I was definitely nervous that my voice had changed enough over 20 years.
Sure.
But you know what? Even in the beginning, occasionally we would pitch it just a little bit. The first thing I said was, don't feel bad if you need to occasionally pitch this if certain things drop into a human place, because that's natural for his voice. But it was really fun because I got to go back to Studio B on the lot, which is where most of the recordings had been done on the first one. And I got to work with Doc, who recorded all the first ones, which is great.
He's been there from the beginning?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
Oh my God, Doc's the best.
So you felt at home. It almost, was it like going back in time, did it feel like? Or?
It really was.
Yeah,
it made me
cool.
so nostalgic. I love that lot. I love that building. So just getting to be there again was like really magical. I had 4, maybe 5 sessions.
I'm trying to stitchify a howl.
Normally, you always record the voices first. No animation has been done. It's theater of the mind. And then all the timing comes from the recordings. But in this case, there was a spectrum. We had some storyboard, so I was leading with the voice, but a lot of stuff was in previs and was also in finished animation. So in that case, I was doing ADR. And that was where it became more of a challenge, and it was definitely fun.
Was the animation, like the mouth flaps were already animated, or
all there? Yeah.
Oh, wow.
All of his mouth, all of his movements.
Did someone else
like
record that initial?
There was nothing there.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
I don't know if they used anything temporarily.
Yeah.
But then I would go in, and it was a little bit like almost like a shooting gallery. You're like trying to hit everything.
No, I'm gonna give you to the count of 3, Stitch.
So those were like arguably the more fun ones.
Yeah.
It was a little more harrowing because you wanted to get it right, but yet we would run it again and again and again. I would do my best to match exactly what was going on screen. Everybody was very patient.
How long were the recording sessions for?
About
this one?
4 hours apiece.
Oh, wow.
And that's pushing it for his voice. About 3 hours in, if you're constantly doing it, it's going to wear down.
I'm being paid to make noise.
It's just going to get a little bit more
4
hoarse.
hours. Wow. I mean, the voice is, I'm sure, strenuous already. So to do it for that long, that's wild.
So we took breaks, and it was a marathon.
Perfect. Take it from the top again.
Yay, this is never quite over.
Now, you mentioned in the first movie you had to do some acting with the emotional scene at the end. So what was like returning to that scene specifically all these years later?
Yeah, I think that's where I've known this thing so well. Any film I work on, from Mulan to, eventually you hear the lines so much, you do them all the time yourself. You'll be driving your car and you're just doing the lines. So the lines are so familiar to me, the timing and everything. And there's certain iconic lines that you just don't want to change, and they kept them, exactly the same.
How?
Whoa.
And then when was the first time you saw the finished product? Because you saw it in so many different stages leading up.
The first time I saw it complete wasn't that long before the release, and I was really nervous because it's like it's just again of all the people on the planet, I'm probably the one that's going to be the most emotionally invested at a genetic level on this whole thing. Yeah. So they were they were really awesome because press was coming up. And I was and nobody had to talk about it. It's like, I kind of need to see it. If I'm going to say anything, otherwise they're like, I have no idea. They're like, what do you think about this one part? I don't know.
Good luck watching it.
I don't know. I can't wait to see it. I had my very own screening too as one of those.
Were you alone in that screening?
I felt so grown up. I went in this little screening room that was in the Seven Doors building, and I just sat there by myself. And I watched it. It was really cool.
And then you saw it again at the premiere, which was fantastic. I was there as well.
He made himself pretty, just for premiere.
He went all out. It was so fun. Was that the first time you got to meet Maia, who plays Lilo?
I didn't meet her until the press. I think it was right before the screening. And we took a break, and I heard Stitch, and I look up, and Maia had come in.
Oh.
And she was doing Stitch.
Here you go. This was loud.
She did a really good job. It was good.
And I'm
really
sure you
good.
get a lot of people coming up to you to do the Stitch voice, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Comic-Con people come up.
I won't do it now, don't worry. So.
You can do it if you want.
No, I can't even. I'll do it in the privacy of my own. No.
Yeah, she did a really good job.
That's awesome.
So we chatted for a little bit as Stitch, and then I said, before the day ends, we should do some brief little press thing together. Yeah. As we were signing posters, the popcorn started shifting a little bit.
There we go.
It looks like he's ripped out of the film. He looks legit. Since the original film, Stitch I feel like it's grown in popularity. Have you noticed that too? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There was a stat that the Wall Street Journal put out that last year alone, Stitch merchandise made $2.6 billion in 2024 alone. And then also this live action movie that's out now, it's on course to make $1 billion. So what is it like seeing it, this staggering growth of popularity?
It's really amazing. It's up to the audience, it's up to the public what the cultural penetration will be for these characters. I really hoped with Lilo and Stitch that the characters would really hang on, that they would really have that cultural penetration. So 2 of my proudest things, it's gone now, but there was for the longest time a Lilo parking area at Disneyland.
Oh yes, okay.
I was so proud of that. I would just stand in front of the sign, I'm like, I really have made it.
Ignore the ride, you got a parking lot, let's go.
Stitch's Great Escape, new at the Magic Kingdom.
I did the recordings for it, and that was a binaural recording. That's amazing.
Oh yeah, because it's all around. I've been on the ride, it's awesome.
And I had no idea how they make those recordings. And it turns out it's a human head with microphones in the ears. That's all there is to it. And the way the sound is shaped, when you play it back, you can tell the proximity of the voice.
Wow.
So I went on stage. I remember there was a chunk that was missing from the head because they said they were recording a wildcat or a mountain lion, and it bit the head.
Oh wow.
And tore a piece out of the head, but the rest of the head was there.
Very Stitch-like already, so in character.
It was, so I would do these recordings and I would go to one side of the head and then work my way around to the other side, real close, then back, and then it was
I would have thought that was
interesting.
mixed in a certain way, but you were actually moving in the same way the ride was.
It's done with the microphone, but then Stitch has just grown and grown and grown.
Yeah.
And now I can go to World of Disney at Disney World. Instead of Mickey Mouse, there's a massive Stitch on the outside of the building.
He's kind of synonymous with the company itself now.
He really is.
It's so
he
cool.
really is. There will almost always be in the stores, not just Stitches for sale, but an entire Stitch section. There'll be like a wing for Stitch. He's really, really connected with
and
people.
I have to imagine that's even more wild because you were working in the theme park on the movie, and now he's permanently in the theme park.
Isn't that amazing?
So cool. Yeah,
it's pretty amazing. And I'm out and about, I go to the airport, and somebody's gonna have Stitch luggage.
Where's the weirdest place you've seen Stitch?
I was in London, and one of the few times I made myself known was that some people were walking their little dog, and he was dressed as Stitch.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, I must tell you who I am. I would love to do a short video with you so I can be in a shot with your dog. And they were so nice, they let me do it. I mean, I see him really every day.
Come to McDonald's for the classic taste of the Big Mac.
I did a McDonald's commercial for the original release. It was like 10 minutes. I walked in, I had like 4 sounds. And they're like, you're done. I was like, okay.
Thank you.
And then for 1 month, checks poured in my mail. Oh my God. They were all sorts of different amounts. And then at the end of the month, and it was all for that commercial.
Sure.
At the end of the month, a check came in and it said, this is your last check. And they just stopped. It was really fun for a while.
So what's the longest recording session you've ever done?
I did a series of recordings for it was going to be a voice, how do I say? It was going to be a voice generated Stitch. And
like an AI thing? Or?
Kind of. It was for a program, and it wasn't going to be used very long, but you would be able to type something in, and Stitch
it was on
would speak.
TikTok.
It was a TikTok
yes,
voice.
okay.
Hello, family. TikTok have Disney Plus Day surprise for you.
And it was pretty good. There were moments where it sounded really good, and moments where it was like, not as great. That recording session was really interesting because I believe all the lines were computer generated. It was kind of nonsense.
Wow, okay.
It would be sentences like, Omaha steaks are especially delicious when grilled late summer.
What?
Literally sentences like that.
Oh, I thought you were going to be doing noises or just vowels.
It was all words.
Wow.
It was compiling what it thought it needed sound-wise.
Okay.
There was no point in even rehearsing it because it was thousands of lines.
Yeah,
that was one of the stranger ones.
So what's the weirdest directing note you've ever gotten as Stitch? Because I mean, there's so many odd situations he's been in, different toys, different things.
There was one that was funny. I believe it was for the sequel, Stitch Has a Glitch. I thought they were joking at first. We had done all these things, including he had a song that he had to sing. So there was some really tough stuff that I got through. And there came a point where Stitch had to go, like I-H. And I went, and we were going fast. We were moving. And they were like, could you do that a little bit more like you're little, more worried? Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, And they go, worried, but with a little bit more enthusiasm. And they started digging in on the And I swear, I was like, okay, is this a bit?
Yeah, after the smallest line in the world.
Yeah, it was really funny. And after I did it 10 times, and I'm like, I really think we have it. I don't know how many other times I can do. Yeah, they're like, but with excitement, but with a hidden longing. And I'm like, you guys are joking. You're messing with me.
Were they joking? Or?
I don't think they were. I think they had this really important
I gotta find that and put it in here. That's hilarious. That's so funny.
It was the same That's when Jumba, he says,
What?
After all you put me through, you expect me to help you again just like that?
Just like that? Fine.
Fine? You're doing what he says.
That's so funny.
that came to me on an airplane. We were flying somewhere and I was writing, and that came to me and it just made me laugh.
So simple, but so hilarious.
Yeah, that he's very persuasive.
Yeah.
He's very persuasive.
Well, in the way Stitch speaks, I'm curious, how did you develop the language of, like, there's some gibberish he does, but I feel like Miga Nala Krista?
Miga Nala Krista!
That's that's a direct line, so how did you come up with those kind of things?
That one I wrote deliberately to make it sound as though it's something that would be shocking.
Yes.
If you understood the translation. If I could, for some reason, find English human words to say, it would be so bad that you would faint.
Yes,
like
okay.
you couldn't even hear the words.
Yeah.
So it goes beyond really any reasonable thing that we could ever imagine. Like when he says Gambuka Gabli,
Gambuka Gabli.
that one I would write just because I had a deliberate, sound I wanted to get. But for the most part, we would just go in and just make up sounds.
So to end off the interview, do you mind saying goodbye to the audience as Stitch?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for listening. If you have come this far, thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a lovely day.